let's get into the top 18 reasons for credit declines, my friends. And some of this information will really be mind blowing to you guys because not a lot of people talk about this. I have never seen a video where they're advertising or like sharing, here are the top reasons why you are declined, because we're just going to keep it that much real with you guys. And before we get into all of those reasons, I want you guys to do me a favor, like, comment, share. Let me know your stories. Let me know if you have found value in this 4-part podcast series, because that is our goal, is to show you guys the way. And even if you don't join the community, again, you can join the community right now for less than $100 a month. Join the community. We get on weekly calls. You'll have access to all of the courses, and you're going to have that support system. So that way, you know what your next move is going to be, because you got to make your next move your best move. And if you knew better, you could do better. We give you the information that you need to know, not necessarily what you want to hear, because if it was that easy, everyone would have perfect credit.
Even inmates, everybody in jail doing $5.
Oh yeah.
Amazing credit. Amazing credit.
All right. 18, man. Number 1 is kind of surprising to me, but I've actually spoken with a lot of people, and it's when you are not a U.S. citizen. There are banks out there that are ITIN friendly, like Bank of America, Capital One. There's quite a few out there. I think Chime is as well, but you really want to just do your research to see what banks are going to be best for you, or if you want to book a call and we can go over, these type of calls. Like if you want to do research, those are more of like a coaching call that's going to take at least an hour to an hour and a half that we need to get on Zoom, because I need to be able to show you. You'll get the recording afterwards, but it's not a 15-minute call. A lot of people just book 15 minutes because it's the cheapest, and then they're mad because they don't get the results that they were seeking. Sir, you've booked a 15-minute call. What more did you want? Okay. Exactly. So, when we want to research things, this is something that we would need to do together to base it off of your credit profile, your goals, your situation, because there's so many gray areas in credit. It's not a one size fits all. It's just never going to be that way. It's different for everyone. And that's a lot of the reason why so many people have a hard time understanding credit. And that's why I started this podcast, so I could just teach you the concept, because we don't need to know everything. We just need to know the concept behind it, so that way we can get on a game plan and just stick to it. Okay.
I was going to say something.
Most
of my clients who are I-10s, they actually, it's so funny, a play on words, but a lot of them bank with Citizens Bank. So that found out to be just hilarious.
Nice.
But they book with Citizens Bank.
Nice.
And Fifth Third too. Fifth Third is to open up and be more, especially with a lot of the stuff you see going on with immigrants and stuff coming over. Mm-hmm. They're starting to open up and provide banking for a variety of reasons and situations and circumstances.
Right. And just because you are not a U.S. citizen does not mean that you are going to get declined, but you have to understand there's different banks for different situations. And that's part of being educated about credit, is you can't just expect to go to any old credit card company like Synchrony at Old Navy and apply for a credit card. And, if you're not a U.S. citizen, you take that risk of getting denied, versus if you are working with ITIN friendly banks, which there are a lot of them out there, we just have to do the research and be educated on what those banks would look like and what they offer. So again, it just really comes down to being educated.
Yeah, because another one of my specialties is helping people. Well, of course, I help them with funding, but I help a lot of people with franchises. And sometimes there'll be other people who have, businesses, and they have money from their home country, but they're coming over here to get in and start a franchise.
I see that so much now.
Yeah, frequent, especially like my whole Florida market, 7-Elevens, like that's a lot of the focus I work on is 7-Elevens. And then we move up north more, then I help with Chick-fil-A's and stuff. But to see it, You'll start to see that. So it's other things. So there are banks and there are companies that are willing, but you just want to have the right information.
Right.
And it takes a lot of research because everybody's situation is different, even
Mm-hmm.
depending on what country you're coming from. So you
Oh
just
yeah.
want to be really mindful of the information that you're, dissecting online. And you
Yeah.
want to be able to have a platform to where you can really get true solid information and know what banks to contact and
Mm-hmm.
have a conversation with them. So you're
Yeah,
making
absolutely. And I'm going to leave the link for Marshall to book a call with her below in the description as well. So if you are interested in starting a franchise, you need help in regards to something along those lines, or you want to get in contact with Marshall, I'm going to leave a link below so you can book a call with her and you guys can speak more about that, because that's some game right there. That truly is. And again, joining the community is going to give you access to be able to ask questions and get, support from both of us. So next is credit score.
I enjoy franchises because
Oh,
when I help people get franchises, like come anytime you get free food. So if life
oh
ever happens,
yeah,
I can travel to different states and
man.
I'm being a
Can you
jerk.
imagine getting free food from like Chick-fil-A forever? I would be like so ecstatic. Like, oh my God.
As soon as you get them into their franchise, they always offer, say, anytime you need anything,
Oh,
come by. But it's such a it's such a rewarding feeling regardless.
oh
I love
yeah.
helping people get the littlest things. It's just people, what really makes me passionate about credit is when people just really think that they cannot, and then they put on that mindset and that armor and they go after it and they're
Mm-hmm.
consistent and persistent. That's what does it for me. That's what keeps me going and keeps me motivated. That people really thought that they had to give up because their score was this or their profile was this, and they can
Right.
really move forward. So I love it.
Yeah,
I love
sometimes it's just a few little tweaks that we have to do and
it.
just kind of maybe age a few accounts, maybe, you know,
Mhm.
whatever the case may be. But it's really just a matter of getting that blueprint, understanding your roadmap, and then taking action.
Yeah,
Put it into high gear, my
yeah,
friends, because you have to take action. We can't do everything for you. We can guide you along the way so you are making the next move your best move,
yeah.
but you're going to have to be the one that puts the pedal to the metal.
Yeah,
Okay.
but you wouldn't want somebody to do everything for you.
No, hell no, you don't.
You
And why
wouldn't.
the hell would you want someone else applying for a credit card shit on your name? Like, I never understood that. Like, the funding companies, like, I get it. It's convenient for some people. But at the same time, wouldn't you want to know the information and, like, be truthful about your application so your card isn't jeopardized in the future? Like, these people are putting whatever the hell they want to on your application, and there's no repercussions for them because they're not the account holder.
God forbid you went to credit repair before you got to them, and you just got off several cards that they just reapplied and ran your
Yeah,
information for because you didn't provide them with that information.
right.
So,
Right.
you run that
Yeah.
risk.
Yeah. Funny enough, I was just working with one of my clients and she was like, hey, I need your help. One of my clients, because he has a really good credit score and he wants to get a good travel card and so on and so forth. So when we looked at the credit report, I didn't see anything on there that was negative. Hey, cool. No issues, right? So we go and apply for him, which I never like to do because I always would prefer to either coach you on how to do it or just give you the information, or you just ask, what do I put in there? Just put the correct information that they're asking, right? But nonetheless, he was ultimately denied with American Express. And she's like, I can't believe why. Like, his credit score is almost at like an 800. This is crazy. So I said, wait a second. Didn't you mention that American Express is suing him because identity theft? Someone had stole this gentleman's identity and, committed fraud and applied for American Express cards. Well, guess what? Just because that is not on the credit report, he cannot go to American Express and get any American Express credit cards until all of that stuff is
Involved.
situated, and they're going through the courts now. But he sure enough was declined. And I said, wait a second, didn't you say that the Amex is suing him? Oh, yes, 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 yes. Okay, that all makes sense now. Creditors and banks have their own internal data as well. And they share it with one another. Just like the SBFE on the business side, it's an association, they share data, right? Now on the consumer side, there's a lot more laws that they have to comply with. But at the end of the day, sharing data is just that. That's exactly what the credit bureaus do, Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion, not to mention all of the hundreds, thousands of third-party data reporting companies like LexisNexis, who literally probably has everything on file about you. You know, there's so many different places out there, check systems, if you're having issues with banking, you know, so many. But you have to understand, you know, you can't run from your past. You got to deal with it at the root. And if it means like going to court, you have to go to court to deal with it, because it's not going to just go away. It's going to continue to affect you and continue to bite you in the butt as long as you don't deal with it. And that's why I always like to get to the root of the problem, because if we try to be lazy and cut corners, it's just going to come back and bite you in the butt later.
Absolutely. And also too, like say for example, if you got with a good cleaner and they were able to get a lot of stuff off your credit report, let's just say you were able to get stuff that would have lasted longer or stuff that would have been right, and you got that off. That's a victory right there.
Heck
To
yeah.
be able to get those items off, and then you may have to invest in getting some when I say invest, paying some money to handle accounts that need your attention. Do it. Do it,
Yeah.
unless you want to wait those years. So you're going to put your life on pause for all those years just because you don't want to make a payment, or just because you were upset, or this company didn't do the right thing by you, or how you felt.
Right.
It's
Can't work
just
with emotions. This is a business. You have to treat this as a business transaction, and that'll make you feel a lot better, because at the end of the day, you're fucking up your business if you have fucked up credit. Let's just be honest, okay?
But even if you're emotional, you're going to let 7 years or 5 years hold you
Yeah.
back from your goals? Please.
No.
That's a internal problem right
Stop
there and
it.
there.
Stop
That is.
it.
Yeah.
Stop it.
That's internal.
Okay. Number 2 is the credit score, or credit report, I should say, is locked, frozen, or consumer statement. If you had credit repair in the past, most likely there are some sort of consumer statement on your credit report. So you have to look at your credit report and see if there is any sort of consumer statement or fraud alerts on your credit report that would require the banks to have to call you to verify before extending credit. Those can lead in automatic denial, because if you don't have a phone number for them to call, or if you're just up against like a computer system, they might just decline you. And it's all because of either, you know, your credit score is frozen, your credit reports are locked, they can't get into them, or you simply have that fraud alert on your credit report. And a lot of people, like, they'll notice after they get credit repair, they're like, man, when I apply for things, I just get denied. Well, that's because you have this huge fraud alert on your credit report.
Yeah.
And we just have to make sure those are removed before you are applying for any funding, and that you have unlocked your files at least 72 hours before applying, because I would like to give it a little extra time to just cycle through. Number 3, credit score is just too low or too weak. We talked about the data points. We talked about how important the data points are. And as long as you follow the data points, your score will follow. So don't be so, you know, amped up about the score per se. Just focus on the data points and the score will follow. If you focus on paying everything on time, keeping your credit card, most of your credit cards at 0, and maybe only 1 to 2 credit cards with less than like a 15% utilization, okay, that's great. And then we want to just let that ride out for as long as possible, because what we want to do is show that there is a long period of time where we don't need the credit, okay? Because that shows longevity, and it shows that you're financially responsible. Because like I've mentioned in the past, these personal credit cards are for decoration. They are for decoration. They are like little trophies, but you don't really want to take it off the shelf unless you have the cash to pay it back right away, okay? Number 4 Marshall, you deal a lot with this one, is the credit history isn't clean.
Yeah, and people don't realize, like, I mean, like we talked about, there's that
Mm,
group chat, there's things that are gone, but they may be on the back end,
yeah,
or you're going back. Sometimes certain credit reports, especially if you have identity IQ and stuff, or my score IQ, sometimes they only go back 2 years
right.
or from a certain window. So
Yeah,
even if there was a late payment, 30, 60, whatever days, and the account's been open since 2015, your late could have happened in 2020 or
yeah.
2017 or 16. But a lot of times you don't see that to know. So therefore,
Mm-hmm.
that's why when somebody's cleaning someone up, you want to take a look at every single thing. And to the
Right.
average person, they may say, goodness, why I got to get this credit monitor and why I got to look at this and look at that. You want somebody who professionally cares enough to look
Mm-hmm.
everywhere, because you rather look under the hood and get everything versus
Right.
getting everything from just off a bare or a basic report. And then you get to the funding table and poof, something pops up that could have been addressed back
Yeah.
in the day. It could have just been addressed altogether.
Yeah.
So history is just really important. History just says a lot. It takes account of what happened, and
Mm,
it gives a forward projective of what's to happen in the future. People
yeah.
judge you based off of it.
Oh, yeah. That's how they tell your characteristics. Okay.
Yeah.
Credit characteristics, that's all that they care about. They don't care about anything else. They don't care about nothing. As long as you're 18 years or older, usually banks like to do 21 and older just to make sure that, you're a little bit more seasoned, but they don't care about nothing else except
Yeah.
for your credit characteristics, your ability to repay back debt as agreed. Meaning we ain't got to call you, we ain't got to harass you, we ain't got to do none of that because you pay on time. Some people might over leverage credit sometimes because they have stuff going on, they need to. That's fine as long as you pay it down before you over leverage again. Okay. So, or make more money. Either you got to do one or the other. Either you got to make more money to be able to live your lifestyle, or you got to reduce the amount that you're spending because oh man, I've seen some things out there. I mean, I worked with this one lady and I was hesitant to work with her because every single credit card that she had was at least 50% utilized, at least. Most of them were like 90%, but she had a few cards that were like a little bit lower. So ultimately I, added a trade line to add more available credit and that made the credit score go up. But ultimately, like there wasn't really much that I could do for her after that because again, we're sweeping it under the rug. We're not dealing with the situation at hand. Like, lady, you are spending more than you are making. So
Yeah.
either you need to stop spending or you need to figure out how to get a second job or get some additional income to pay this shit off because whatever you're doing right now is not working.
Yeah.
Okay. And
Yeah.
sometimes you have to have those hard conversations with yourself. Like, oh my God, all my cards are maxed out.
Yeah.
Maybe I need to just do like a side hustle to get some extra money, whether that's DoorDash or whatever you can do, online surveys, whatever, affiliate marketing to
Yeah.
bring in some extra money so you can pay your debt off.
Yeah. And I just think that that's the conversation that people have to have, because and it's interesting that the individuals that I work with great credit or great income and stuff like that, it's just like, I don't know, it's like they don't have unrealistic expectations. And then
Mm-hmm.
the individuals who I usually, interact with who have lower income or their scores are in the tank, they think that it's an instant quick fix in and out. And sometimes I wonder if it's just marketing. Do people market
Yeah.
to
Oh,
people,
yeah.
demographics, to make them feel like it's instantly? But to
Mm-hmm.
go anywhere and think that you can get hundreds or thousands of dollars and you have a late payment for something that costs $300 a month, to
You
even
got a
think
$30 late payment. Get out of
that
town.
makes sense. It is not poking fun or laughing at
No,
a
no,
person who's in
certainly
that
not.
scenario, but it's just like,
You
think
have to
about it.
priorities, people,
It
priorities.
it's like what's they call it, like the twin was it Twiddle Swindler or something like that?
Oh
It
yeah.
it's
That
just like,
Netflix show, the
yeah.
Tender
And there's
Swindler.
yeah, but it's just like, if it sounds too good to be true, and you know
Mhm.
that you're not really in that dating class to even pull someone
Right.
that attractive, you got to tell yourself the truth that this ain't real.
Right.
So if
Don't get
you
swindled.
know that you're not in you can't even go to your local bank and get $1,000. What
Hmm.
makes you think some other lender's going to say, here's 100 because you have an LLC?
Yeah.
You got to really think about those things, people. And it doesn't mean that you look bad. Sometimes I got to shine a light on myself and say, hey, if you want this and that, you want to grow, you got to cut back on certain these things. You got to do X, Y, and Z, because you have to do some trimming to get to the next level. You do.
Is it going to be easy?
No.
No.
Some things in the old realm can't come to the new realm, and you have to
Mm-hmm.
be okay with
Yeah.
understanding that. And it's no pace. If you feel like you can't part with it now, then you sit in that till you're ready. But when you're ready to move forward, then you'll eventually move forward. But there's
Yeah.
nobody on a magic horse that's coming to save you and say, hey, we're giving you $100,000 of credit because you deserve it, and
Sprinkle you.
because your birthday's in September, and we know that all Libras, and shout out to Virgos too, but all
Yeah.
Libras are magical, so you're gonna
Oh
get this
man.
money. But no,
Yeah, here's a magical lifesaver for you.
it doesn't work that way. If that's the
Yeah.
case, even the bank employees would have all the money. They don't have all the money
Right. And the banks, they don't pay a whole lot.
either.
So in this day and age, everything is so expensive. So it's like, even if you do make a decent salary, a decent salary is still not enough to live on these in this day and age. So you really have to create an additional stream of income. And
Yeah,
not a lot of people are going to want to drive Uber or, do DoorDash. They would prefer to do something that is online. And that's where we come into play, because we can show you how to get the bag online. Okay.
yeah.
Let's talk about number 5. I see this all the time. You have
Okay.
a bankruptcy. If you have a bankruptcy and it is less than 2 years old, friend, you're probably going to get denied. I'm so sorry. Even for cars, I see a lot of auto loan places that if someone has like a bankruptcy in the last 2 years, it's like an automatic denial. So,
Yeah,
that's a really, really like worst case scenario is like bankruptcy. Like, even if you have a shit ton of debt, like
yeah,
you should really, discuss what option would be best for you with a bankruptcy attorney. Because if you have like over $100,000 in debt, it might make sense for you. But if you only have like 30, 50, 60, 80,000 debt, you can negotiate settlements and payment plans, which might seem like you're going to take forever, but generally you can settle with a lot of these banks for 20 to 50 cents on the dollar. So it's not like you're
yeah,
paying, if you owe Bank of America $50,000, you're not going to pay 50,000. You're probably going to pay like 20,000. They'll
yeah.
be happy to get that.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. I
you know,
think bankruptcy now, like, really, it's a cute word, and it makes people. I mean, it's a term, but it makes people feel good, or like it's like one of those words, like, oh, involuntary repo. It's
right.
still a repossession, baby, no matter how you word it.
Right.
A
Whether it's voluntary or
bankruptcy,
involuntary. And guess what? The banks don't give a shit. So a lot
yeah,
of people are like, well, that's not true because it was a voluntary repossession.
yeah,
Like, I took it. And I'm like, honey, it does not matter, because a repo is a repo. Whether
yeah.
it
I
was
meant to
this
say
way or that
voluntary.
way, it just does not matter. Okay. It
No,
is
I
what it
meant to say
is.
voluntary. I don't know if I said involuntary, voluntary, but I meant to say voluntary, just for, just to be clear.
Yeah.
But bankruptcy is just literally, in layman's terms, in everyday homegirl, homeboy terms, it's, I had access to credit. I did not pay it, or I couldn't manage it.
Hmm.
So I had to have somebody else step in.
So I'm
So
super risky,
if
and
you,
don't give me any credit, because I'm not going to pay it back, because I still have to pay this bankruptcy. Or, a lot of people are on the wage earner program when it
yeah,
comes to the bankruptcy. So they're still paying on it.
yes,
And if you don't, like, if you file bankruptcy and say you put your car in bankruptcy, you don't get to keep the car.
yeah,
If you stop paying for some sort of collateral, they're going to come take that shit. So, again, a bankruptcy is not my favorite thing to do, but some people obviously have more debt than they would be able to settle with. And that's just, an unfortunate situation. But
yeah,
usually it's people that had a business because they had access to more funding than your average consumer,
yeah,
and they personally guaranteed it. So, if they have over $100,000 in debt, obviously, they might, bankruptcy might be a better decision for them. But just know, recovering from bankruptcy is a 2-year process.
yeah. Yeah. And I mean,
Definitely.
there's certain circumstances. I mean, there's, like we said, there's situations where, yeah, but there's more situations than not when it's like, don't do it. So if
Right.
there's any questions or you're on the fence about that, reach out to Nicole, me, whoever you want to,
Mhm.
but just make sure you get the information. But if
Yeah,
you go
just
through
get
a
some
bankruptcy
honest
attorney,
feedback from someone who's not trying to sell you on anything, but
yeah,
is just giving you, "Hey, if I were in your situation, this is what I would do. I'm not a lawyer, I don't give legal advice, but, if I were in your shoes, this is what I would do." And
and the
this is my
bankruptcy
honest
attorney
feedback.
wouldn't be the one to get the advice from. You wouldn't get the
No. No.
because
No.
that's their
No.
job is. If I go to a barber
Yeah.
and say, "Hey, should I cut my hair?" They're going to say, "Yes, you should."
Yeah. So you wanna get someone that has no interest in trying to sell you on any going one way or the other, but is literally just giving you the information for you to make an educated decision based on like your situation. Bankruptcy is a tough one. It's very expensive to go through because you have to pay the lawyer, you have to pay the fees, you have to pay all these extra stuff. Plus, if you're on the wage earner program, you still have to make payments for like a certain period of time. So it's just one of those things that's unfortunate, but it does happen. And a lot of people are like, yeah, file bankruptcy, but it's like there's no guarantee that if you do file bankruptcy and then go through credit repair, that the bankruptcy is just going to come off of your credit. There's no guarantee. Funny story about a bankruptcy. I've gotten a lot of bankruptcies off of credit profiles, but this one lady, I met her a couple of years ago, and ever since then, she's joined my mentorships. And finally, she just said, I just want you to do my credit. Okay, fine, I'll do that. We've been working together for 2 years now, and her bankruptcy is finally off of 2 of the credit bureaus. The only one that's left is, she had so many accounts.
Yeah,
So many accounts when we first started.
yeah,
Okay. So many accounts, like all the accounts that were from the bankruptcy plus the bankruptcy.
yeah.
So the only thing that she has left, and this took 2 years, are 3 items on Experian, and the bankruptcy is still, I don't know if the bankruptcy is on Experian or not. I think it is. So it's just on Experian, and then there's just 3 accounts left. And that took 2 years because we were consistently going back and forth fighting with them. And I know there was a point where she's like, man, I just want to give up. Like, this shit is not working.
Of course.
Like, imagine if someone had to pay monthly for that. They would probably have already been gave up. But I did a package with her where I said, look, you pay me this set price. We'll work together for until it's done, until
Yeah,
it's finished. And I
yeah,
will continue to work
yeah.
your file.
Yeah, I've done that before.
Yeah.
What I mean? I don't usually don't keep clients that long. They usually, get it handled. But the thing is, it's always at the discretion of the credit bureau. There's
Right.
whereas people, I've
Right.
big stuff off. I'm talking about like big boss off of reports, and it'll
Yeah.
be the littlest Victoria's Secret card that's hanging on for
Oh,
dear life. So
so
you just,
frustrating.
it really just depends on the person's profile, what happened, the exchange, and just getting to the root of it.
Yeah.
But if you stick into it, because people ask, well, have you ever worked with somebody where you didn't get their stuff off? And I always tell people, I'm confident. I don't believe I can't get anything off, but it's the time period. You got to keep going and going and going
Right.
and going. So you may stop at 6 months, but one particular file may really take a year, 2 years,
Mm-hmm.
especially depending the stuff that's on it. People
Yeah.
have so much stuff, and sometimes the same person that tells you the stuff on the phone, the story, is not what you see when you look at the report. It's two
Mm-mm.
different things.
Mm-mm.
It's two different things.
Yeah. And with bankruptcies, it just makes it that much harder because, like, you have all of the accounts that are included in the bankruptcy, plus you have the bankruptcy. So you got to clean all that crap up.
And a
And
lot
it
of
is,
people know that.
when something just happens too, it makes it that much harder because the data is so much more accessible because it all just happens. So, of course, they have a lot of the files that they can, instantly, authorize, or, how
Yeah,
do they say it?
sure,
Validate, right?
sure.
Validate. So they'll say, oh, it's validated. Oh, it's validated. And it's like, oh my God. So, it's a process. Normally it doesn't take that long, but in her situation, she just had gone through bankruptcy, and there was like over 50 accounts, and
Yeah,
it was like so long. But I'm so glad that we stuck to it because look at now, she only has 3 little tiny accounts that are left, and all of them have a 0 balance. We just want them deleted.
yeah.
And then that one bankruptcy with Experian, and we just sent them a arbitration letter. So that should hopefully clear it up. We'll see.
Good, good.
But,
I mean, it's good.
bankruptcies are just the devil, they really are. And then 6 and 7 kind of speak for itself. Like you just
Yes.
don't have enough income. Like
Yeah.
you don't make enough with your job, or your business doesn't make enough revenue yet. Because believe it or not, like when you are going after funding, like what bank in their right mind is going to give you funding when you don't have any revenue and you're
Yes.
like, yeah, I'm a startup, but like I don't have a job and I'm not making any money in my business, but I want you to give me $50,000 so I can start my business.
Yeah. I'll never forget, right, when I was like really new, like branching off from the other companies that I've worked with and started my own thing. And I was just so confident, like my credit, everything was good. But I was actually going to a person to hire because I was going to hire some staff for myself. And I
Mm,
was just explaining, like, I'm a new company. I'm so excited. And the lady was so clear cut on the phone. She said, "That's great that you're just starting, dear, but can you afford our prices?" I was offended at first because that's what, immature people do. But
mm,
she's thinking about the bottom line. We want to
yeah,
help. We want to have consistent people who are going to hire our team and keep them. If you're
right,
just starting, have you had a plan for that? And of course, I was like, I'm in the financial space, so I know what I'm doing with money. I was prepared. But those are things that you have to think about. I could have easily said, "Oh, she said that to me because I was black," or, "Oh, she said that to me because I was a girl." She didn't know that I was
right,
black. And of
right.
course, you can hear my voice and assume that I'm a woman. But the reality is sometimes those things just hurt because we're sensitive about it. But we
Mm-hmm.
got to get over that hump and get to what it really matters. Can you afford what you're asking for? Can you maintain what you're asking for?
Yeah,
And
that
if
is
you
so
do,
important.
let your credit speak for itself. Because if you
Yeah,
put it like that, you don't have to say shit. Excuse my French. You
right,
could just say, "Here's my report," and
right.
they'll say, "Here go your keys," or, "Here goes your product," or, "How soon can we get it to you, Miss Wood?"
Mm-hmm.
They'll say it. "How soon can we get it to you?"
Yeah,
"Tonight. Get it to me tonight." So
yeah.
you have to let your
So many
credit report speak for
people
itself. You got to let
over
it.
leverage themselves.
Yeah.
And a lot of times I see it done on
Mhm.
the vehicles because they feel like they need to drive a certain vehicle, or, they want this certain vehicle. I get it. We all want nice vehicles. We
Yeah.
all want nice stuff, but you have to stay in your lane. If your car payment is $1,500, you need to make sure that you can maintain that $1,500 payment for
Yeah.
7 years.
Yeah.
And if it's shaky because you are check to check, no, you don't need that $70,000 vehicle. You need a $20,000 vehicle.
Yeah.
You need to, stay in your lane, because a $400 car payment is going to be maintainable for 7 years, but 1,400, not so much, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. I
So
have a
you
lot
really have to
of.
analyze it. And just because you hear the word approved, I know it's like, oh my God, celebration. But no, understand it, because again, you're dealing with salespeople who are trying to sell you. Auto dealerships, they're trying to sell you. They will not let you leave until they have a sale. They are very manipulative and sneaky. So, you want to make sure that you understand what you're dealing with,
Yeah.
okay? And if
Yeah.
that means, hey, no, I don't want to make a decision right now, I just want the information, and then I'm going to go research it and make sure that it makes sense for me. If they can't understand that, you don't need to work with them
Yeah.
anyways,
Absolutely.
because that's too salesy.
Yeah. And also be okay to stay in your lane. Be
Mm-hmm.
okay. Like
Yeah.
I work with a lot of physicians and anesthesiologists and stuff. And it's so interesting because when we talk on a peer level, like a lot of them will say, "Yeah, I'm okay with my car." But most doctors, anesthesiologists and stuff, especially in my area, in that Charlotte and Greenville, South Carolina, and Rock Hill and all that area, a lot of them are driving plain cars. And they'll
Mm,
say it's so interesting when new nurses or even the janitorial staff, they'll pull up in a Lexus, they'll pull up in a Benz, they'll pull up in all this stuff, and they don't even make a fraction of the money that
exactly.
the doctors and stuff make. And the doctors will have a simplistic car or older car that's paid off. So it's just
Mm-hmm.
that it's not saying that you can't have a nice car. Some people want an apartment with a nice car because that's what works for them. If that works for you, just make sure that you can afford it. Cut your coat according to your size. If
There
you
you
can't
go.
fit your coat, stay the hell out of it.
There
That's it.
you go. There you go. And number 8, revenue is inconsistent. If
Oh,
you are not showing consistent revenue, banks are going to have an issue with that, because how are you going to pay them every month for this payment if your revenue is not consistent? So that
great. Yeah,
that can be an issue. Now, a
great.
lot of times when you are applying for credit cards, it's not necessarily based on bank financial records or bank statements or anything like that. It's really just your credit report. But when
Yeah,
you go after lines of credit or any sort of additional funding, financial records could be asked for. So that's why I always tell people, stay ready so you ain't got to get ready. And,
exactly.
you want to be able to control the conversation. You want
Yes.
your credit report to speak volumes, so they don't
Yeah,
need shit from you. Look at
yes.
my credit report.
Yep.
No, I'm not giving you my bank statement. That's an
Yep.
invasion of my privacy. Look at my credit report. Do I
Yep.
show any signs of risk? No, thank you. So
Yeah.
let's go.
Yeah.
Your credit report does all the talking for you. That's all the
Yes.
talking that you need to do.
It's,
Number 9 is internal risk score is too high. I touched on this a little bit earlier in one of the episodes where I talked about don't buy shit on your credit card and then do a fraud claim on it like you didn't buy it or that wasn't your transaction. Chargebacks. Like I've had people buy stuff from me and then charge it back, like digital products. And I'm like, that's so weird. Like, why would you want to buy something from someone and it's already like super cheap, and then maybe you didn't recognize it or you didn't do your research to find out that you purchased it and then you do a chargeback? Like that's ridiculous.
yeah.
People have to understand, anytime you do a chargeback with your credit card company, you become high risk to them and you're damaging your relationship with the bank. Like if you don't recognize a charge, do your research, see if that was actually you that did it. If it truly wasn't, that's one thing, right?
Yeah.
But
Yes.
if you buy things because you wanted it, you need to pay for it. Okay. And that's part of adulting. And that's part of, understanding like, okay, well, I paid for it. Maybe, I was expecting something different or whatever the case may be. But you don't want to damage your relationship directly with the bank. Another way that people damage their relationships with the banks is have overdraft fees.
Oh,
Overdraft, overdraft. Like, no, we're not spending what we don't have. So overdrafts and, making false, chargebacks onto your credit or any chargebacks for that matter. Like
yeah.
sometimes if I don't see something and it's like $10 or whatever, I'm like, I don't know where that's from, but I'm sure that I did it because I don't see anything else. And I'd rather not do a chargeback or a dispute because it just damages your relationship with the bank like more than you can ever think.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah. And also, before we move to forward, I just want to go back and say something really important for number 8. Revenue inconsistency. Also, be mindful if you are, you receive a commission too. I'm not saying you have to be fearful, but a lot of times when you're going for certain funding structures, they can perceive that if you're getting commission, that one year it may be this rate, and then next year it may be that rate and stuff like that. So don't get discouraged. Just reach out and we can be
Mm-hmm.
able to help you and make sense of that and give you some strategies what to do if you are a commissioned employee. But
Right.
that's really important that I didn't want to leave off the table.
Yeah. And if you are a commission employee, you really have to have the tax returns with that Schedule C on it. So, they can see, especially when it comes to buying property. If you are, a business owner, or if you got side hustles, it's all going to be in your tax returns that a lot of the lenders are going to need, especially when it comes to like SBA loans, properties. A lot of times when you go after like business funding, they're going to want your personal tax returns and your business tax returns, your personal bank statements and your business bank statements. So again, a lot of that, it's like you got to keep all that stuff together.
Yeah, you do.
Well, number 10 is the bank account isn't eligible. So Marshall talked about this earlier where you need to date the bank. You can't just go to a date and expect to, get down the first night like a lot of people do, but that's probably because their credit scores are already established, right? Now, in this situation, a lot of people will need to wait at least 90 days and date the bank before they ask them on, to the next level, because it's just not acceptable. Okay. Don't try to rush things. Okay. Take your time, go about it slow. Let the bank see that you got some cash flow. Let the bank see that you've got some direct deposit. Even if you're only having, say if you have a direct deposit and you only have 10% going into that bank. Great. Because guess what? A lot of times when you enter, say, for example, you get like a notice in the mail, like, hey, if I go open up a bank account with Chase right now, they'll give me $200 bonus for signing up for just a bank account with them. But one of the requirements is I have to have direct deposit. Great. Okay. So in that case, you set up like a 10% direct deposit to this bank, 10% to this bank, kind of spread your direct deposit so that way you can be eligible for their bonus and the bank will feel more comfortable with you because you have consistent revenue in direct deposit into your accounts. And you've been showing them over time that, hey, I don't have any overdraft fees. I manage my money responsibly. You don't want to show signs of risk. And when you overdraft your account, that is a huge red flag.
It's scarce. It's like, hey, we don't even know how
Yeah.
this thing.
Yeah.
It's just inconsistent behavior. They're not sure.
It's
They're not
just
sure what they're going to
never
get
good. Never
next.
good.
Yeah.
And that could damage you for like 90 days at least with a bank. So just avoid it at all costs. I don't even turn my overdraft thing on because if the money ain't there, I don't want it approved. Okay.
Yeah.
So if you guys have overdraft protection, turn it off because you don't want transactions to get approved if the money's not there. Because if you overdraft your account, it damages your relationship and it's just, plus it's going to cost you money. So you just don't want it. You don't want that smoke. Okay. Let's just be honest. Moving on to number 11 is too many inquiries. We touched on this earlier as well. What you should have is less than 5. Now, if you have a bunch of inquiries from accounts that you actually have relationships with, that's okay, but less is better. So if we could get less than 4 on each credit bureau, that would be ideal.
Yes.
0 to 4 is kind of what we're looking for. Even 4 could be pushing it with some financial institutions because, again, not every bank is the same. American Express, they're probably not going to care. Chase will care. PenFed will care. Some of these other banks like Navy Federal, they will not care as much. So some banks are more, flexible and, fundable when it comes to having a lot of inquiries, but ultimately we don't want all of these unnecessary inquiries, especially if you went car shopping or you've just been applying for a bunch of shit that you got approved for. Let's get all that stuff cleaned up. We got to. Okay.
Less is better.
Less is better. Okay. And number 12, too much recent funding. So that's why I talk about build, break, build. Build up some credit, get some funding, take a break. Don't apply for anything for 6 to 12 months. Let all of those accounts age. Show them, hey, I can manage my funding perfectly fine. You don't have anything to worry about over here. Okay. Show them. Actions speak louder than words. So if you have too much recent funding, you're over leveraging yourself. Obviously, the banks already know how much money you make. They're just going to ask you on the application to test you. Okay. It's not a secret. And that's how they target people. It's like, they know all this data. They have data on you. Okay.
Hello. Yeah. Even your Cash App sending and receiving and your, you may think you're doing this with PayPal. That stuff calculates. And it calculates.
It's a paper trail. It's all data. So, you just have to understand that that's why you just want to do the right thing. Always want to do the right thing so it doesn't come and bite you in later on. Because when you put good energy out there and you do the right thing and you're constantly just on this positive path, blessings are going to come one after another after another. And I always see people that aren't necessarily doing the right thing. And they're like, oh my God, negative, negative, negative. This happened negative, that happened negative. And it's like, well, that's what you're putting negative out. So of course you're going to get negative back. But when you put good energy, positive energy out, you're going to get nothing but blessings. So that takes us to number 13, where the utilization, your credit card utilization is way too high. Again, most cards need to be at 0, especially if you're applying for funding. Let's just zero those bad boys out because you can't look like you need money when you're asking for money. Okay. It just doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
It just doesn't. 14, missing important paperwork. Paperwork, whatever they ask for, if they don't get it, you're not going to get approved. Okay. 15, you have previous defaults. So if you've taken out credit in the past and you've defaulted on it, no one's going to want to give you credit in the future. Okay. Number 16 has a criminal record. Now, a lot of felons can still get funding, okay? But sometimes it will limit that funding. Credit cards, pretty easy. But again, with credit cards, you're only going to go up to about $50K on average. Now, Chase, I've seen, $100,000 credit cards with Chase, but obviously not every bank is like Chase. And Chase is very strict. They want at least a 720 credit score. They want no more than 5 accounts opened in the last 24 months. They want no more than a couple inquiries listed on your credit report, and Chase is pulling from Experian. So it is going to be a lot stricter. But when you have a criminal record, obviously it's like on all these public data sharing places. So sometimes it is more challenging to run from your past, but there's still a way around it, but you could still deal with it. So that's why I always tell people, like, check out what the data companies have on you. If you're worried about what LexisNexis has on file for you, request your report and dispute the information just like you would with the credit bureau.
Yeah. Yeah. How do you feel while we're speaking of criminal record? Of course, it's not a criminal record, but have you ever run into people getting denied because of child support concerns?
I
Or
haven't seen that. I've only worked with a few people that had active child support and
Yeah.
they were paying it on time. So it didn't really affect them in a negative manner. I think when you have child support and you're like so much in the rears and you're late and you're not paying it, obviously that's going to look bad for any type of account, especially
Yeah.
like, oh, well, that's his own child. So he should be paying that, right? Or she
Mhm.
should be paying that. It could go
Yeah.
either way. But, any type of negative account like that just shows constant derogatory behavior and just risky behavior is going to ultimately hurt you.
I've seen some people who are current with it, but also too, I've seen and it's interestingly now I'm thinking about it's coming to me. It's been just like the Midwest though, like
Mm.
people, gentlemen, men, they were all men, gentlemen who have had they have good standing, things are good, and that child support, even though it's current, I've seen it more times than not that they were denied, and when it came back, that was like, hey, that's something that particular bank. So I
Yeah.
just asked to see if that was something for you because I've been working on and will continue to work on saying, hey, we can go to other banks, but
Right.
just, just ironing that out because it's been a
Right.
little bit balled up, but just iron it out to make sure that people who are in child support situations that they're not deterred from funding. So
Right.
always doing that research and looking for options for them as well.
Yeah, that's so important to know because, this is the exact reason why we built the community so we can share information and
Mm.
everyone can share information because information is always changing and it could differ based on territory. It's definitely going to differ based on financial institution. And there's so many variables out there
Yeah,
that it's like a spider web. It's like,
it
oh my
is.
God, it just never stops, right?
It
So it's
is.
so important for us to be able to share this with you guys. You share, everything with the community members so we can all level up and just be educated and what to expect because we would hate to send someone to go get funding if we already know that, hey, they've got child support issues. So we would need to get that off their credit report before they applied so we don't waste, an inquiry when we know that they're going to get denied
Yeah.
ultimately, right?
You made a good point before we get to it, and I'll definitely shut up from there. But you also made a good point because information is ever evolving. You want to also be careful who you're taking information from. Because
Yes.
sometimes I've noticed, and I'm not a big fan of going on YouTube or looking at other people's content with credit because I think it's just like a rapper. Sometimes you don't want to hear other people's music, so you get caught up in sounding like them. But what I say it to say is that sometimes people are sharing information that's pre-COVID or they're
Yeah.
sharing
Oh,
information
yeah.
and that's just something
Oh,
that's just not. The rules
oh,
that flew for COVID are non-existent. So you just want to make sure that looking at the dates or just making
yes.
sure, and you don't always 100% know, but just check in with somebody else or compare it to somebody else. Even if
Mhm.
it's not us, just make sure you know where and
Do
when
your due diligence,
what time
okay?
this information is coming from because some of
Yes.
it is just old stuff, old news.
Mhm.
If you think that you're going to get a quill card and get $20,000 worth of paper and or $80,000 worth of gas cards, and your business doesn't have anything to do with vehicles, and then you're going to go to the bank and stuff like that. That's a lot of pre-COVID conversations that you just want to be mindful that you're not taking that at face value, because it's outdated.
Yes.
It's very outdated.
It is so played out. Like, I saw a reel the other day that was being advertised by, like, a faceless Instagram page. And it was a reel of someone that was like, oh, wow, she's got a reel on this page. And then I looked at the reel and I'm like, wait, what? Like, that information is so not true nowadays. Like, and so sometimes you just have to either or you don't, but always get someone else's opinion that's, like, going to keep it real with you, because a lot of information changes rapidly.
Yeah.
And information changes, because banks find out, the banks know, they have their teams that go and look for this type of shit. And plays only last so long, right? So you really just want to try to stay, if you just constantly focus on trying to do the right thing and trying to, grow your credit, you're not going to have to worry about all that stuff, because you're not a risk. So people that try to avoid a personal guarantee or try to, get all this funding without using their personal credit, I feel like those are people that already have bad financial habits. Those are already people that have bad credit. And those are people that are trying to, just not do right by the first place. It's like, you have to have better financial habits if you want to be successful long term. And sometimes it does take time, because, let's just be honest, credit takes money, right? Paying your debt takes money. And, adding trade lines, it all takes money. And a lot of this is where people fall short because they spend more than they make. And it really boils down to financial habits. So that's where we really have to buckle down and say, I have to stop spending or I have to make more money. And sometimes it's a combination of both. Okay. So let's get to number 17. Has a restricted business. This is really just a high industry business. So if someone's applying for business funding and they have, like, credit repair business, obviously that's high risk. So any sort of high risk business could get you declined. Or if you've not had enough time in business, your business is too young. I've seen that a lot as well. I'm actually working with someone who has an 8-month-old business now, and we've had quite the battle getting approved. We have gotten approved for quite a bit since we worked together, but obviously it's not enough for him. But, I have to keep reminding him, you've only been in business for 8 months. You've already over leveraged your credit. We need to wait and get these inquiries cleaned up and then go after more funding after you've shown payment history on a few of the accounts that you've already acquired. So it does take time. It is, just a process, and it looks different for everyone. And last but not least is 18, is you just have bad business credit. And once you have late payments and charged off accounts on your business credit, it's very hard to clean up. It's not like personal credit. So ultimately, if you made the debt, you either have to pay it or say, well, the hell with this business, I'm just going to start over and try to do the right thing. Because sometimes when you just have so much negative on your business credit, it's just better to start over, to be honest with you, because it's just, it is what it is,
Yeah. And it's like, once it's like, other companies and stuff like that, on your personal side, they can take the 20-day late, the 25-day late. Your business, if you're late, 1 day late, you're late.
You're late.
You're late. It's a different ball game.
It is.
Personal credit is high school basketball, and business credit is professional basketball.
That's
right. So if
right.
you want to be on a professional team, you got to follow professional rules.
Yeah, it's a business. It's not that we're trying to be mean, and it's not that, you're a certain nationality or gender or you look a certain way. It has absolutely nothing to do with it. What it has everything to do with is your pattern. All right, everyone, we're going to just give a quick recap of today's call. Basically, you need to join the community, sign up for the group community so we can give you the guidance that you need. The link is in the description. I will leave a link for my calendar and Marcelle's calendar. If you have questions, feel free to book a call, guys. Make sure that you have watched all of the 4 part series of the credit hacks on how to get 100K. And if you need assistance in which banks to apply for, in what order, all that good stuff, either one-on-one coaching or the community, depending on what type of, what's going to work best for you and your personality, you want to make sure to take action. So visit the links in the description. And I've left all of those links for you guys for you to be able to take action and rewatch these videos, because I'm telling you right now, if I knew this information when I was first starting, it would have saved me a whole heck of a lot of time and money, because boy, I'll tell you, I was taken for a ride, and I'm sure you guys have experienced that in your past as well, but you finally get sick and tired of being sick and tired, and I was sick and tired, okay? So I took action, and that's exactly what you need to do, is you need to take action, because if you knew better, you could do better. And this is the information that you need to know to get real life results. It's not just a fluke that I became successful with this. Yes, it took time. Yes, I wanted to give up. Yes, it was hard, but did I make it? I'm still here. Okay. And guess what? I started out just like you. Okay. Watching YouTube, learning, focusing on fixing my own credit. And now I'm able to help thousands and millions of people across the United States. And that's what we're looking for. We're looking for people like you that are serious, that are committed, that want to join a community of like-minded individuals. So that way we can all flourish together, because let's just be honest, the more power that we have to make a positive impact, the better, guys. So go ahead and make sure you give the video a huge thumbs up, leave a comment, share it. And most importantly, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. If you have watched all four parts of this series, I thank you so much. You could have been anywhere, but you decided to spend your time with us today. And I appreciate you so much, more than words can ever explain, because I just want to encourage you to take action and, get on that path of success, because man, it is addicting. And I am so addicted to being successful. And that's all that I want, is just for you guys to find success. So thank you so much for joining. Make sure that you've subscribed. And again, check all of the links below in the description to connect with us more. We've got the 4-part series coming up on the playlist next.
Yes.